There's someone in your circle who is a complete digital ghost. No selfies, no story updates, no gym check-ins, no look at me moments. In a world where it feels like if you didn't post it, it didn't happen, these people almost seem like they're from another era. Most assume they're shy, insecure, maybe even boring. And if you've ever been labeled that way for staying private, pause for a second. That label says more about the culture than it does about you. But what if that assumption is completely backwards? What if the people who post the least actually understand something about human psychology that the rest of us have traded away for likes? Today, we're decoding the ghost mode mindset, and it might make you rethink everything you've been posting. Here's a question. When was the last time you checked how many likes your post got? Be honest. 5 minutes after posting? An hour? Maybe you checked while pretending not to care? There's no judgment here, because this is how social media is designed. Every notification is a dopamine hit telling your brain you matter. Psychologists call this the external validation loop. And here's the problem. When your sense of worth depends on an audience, it becomes fragile. And if you've ever felt slightly uncomfortable playing that game, constantly updating, constantly sharing, that discomfort isn't weakness, it's awareness. But people in ghost mode operate on something different. Psychologist Jennifer Campbell calls it self-concept clarity, a stable, well-defined sense of identity that doesn't need 200 strangers to double tap it to feel real. Think of it like this. Most people's confidence is a sail. It shifts with the wind of public opinion. But ghosts, their confidence is an anchor. They don't confuse privacy with insecurity. They simply don't need a digital mirror to know who they are. I once had a conversation with someone who barely posts. I asked him why. He said, I went to this incredible concert last year, and halfway through, I realized I'd been watching it through my phone screen, curating the perfect story. I wasn't even there. I was performing being there. That hit me hard, because if you've ever caught yourself doing that, you're not alone. A lot of people feel it, very few admit it. He described what psychologists call performative authenticity, where even our most genuine moments are tailored for an invisible audience. Social media hasn't just given us a stage, it's turned our entire life into a stage. And according to Leon Festinger's social comparison theory, humans instinctively measure themselves against others. Social media doesn't just enable that, it weaponizes it. We're stuck in a 24/7 highlight reel competition where everyone's winning except us. But people who've gone ghost, they've opted out of the theater. They practice what's called digital boundary setting, choosing to be present in their own life instead of constantly documenting it for validation. They understand something most of us have forgotten. The most meaningful moments usually happen when the camera is off. Here's something fascinating. When you announce your goals publicly, your brain experiences something called symbolic self-completion. Basically, the announcement itself gives you a hit of achievement, which actually kills your motivation to follow through. Ghosts prefer something deeper, private victories. They're working on their mindset, their body, their future in silence. Not because they're hiding, but because some growth feels more powerful when it isn't performed. And socially, they understand the scarcity heuristic. When you're everywhere online, your presence becomes cheap. When you're selective, your presence becomes premium. They save their best stories for real conversations, not comment sections. Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean that everyone who avoids posting is emotionally intelligent. Sometimes silence can come from avoidance or fear. The difference isn't visibility, it's intention. Look, if you post a lot, this isn't about shaming you, but ask yourself, if no one reacted to your last 10 posts, would you still have shared them? If the answer is no, that's not a flaw. It just means visibility matters to you. People who don't post aren't visible. They simply don't tie their worth to being seen. They have what psychologists call non-contingent self-esteem, confidence that doesn't collapse when nobody's watching. They're not insecure. They're grounded, self-aware, living a life they don't need to prove. So the next time you see a digital ghost, don't assume they're hiding. They might just understand something you're still learning. And if you've quietly chosen privacy in a world that rewards exposure, that doesn't make you outdated. It makes you deliberate. And here's what's interesting. Many people who value privacy also tend to feel drained by small talk, not because they're antisocial, but because their mind naturally leans towards depth over surface-level noise. Of course, that's not true for everyone, but if that sounds familiar to you, I made an entire video breaking down the psychology of people who prefer meaningful conversations over small talk. You'll see it on your screen right now. Tap the end screen and watch it next because it connects directly to what we just covered. If you're ready to understand more patterns behind human behavior, subscribe and tell me, what's the one thought that makes you hesitate before hitting post?